Good evening, beautiful people. Another gorgeous day in Hollywood, California. West Hollywood. Today is July 27th. And today I want to cover two topics I've noticed in the comments you guys leave. Which is awesome, by the way. Thanks. I actually really do like talking to you guys. You guys are always have something nice to say. And then thanks on the 200 subscribers too. That was fast. That's crazy. But so pancreatitis mainly because that's how I knew this whole thing was beginning for me. And then people keep asking me about like transplant lists, which I'm gonna attach that to also like the financial aspect of it all, insurance and whatnot. So pancreatitis, right? The pancreas, I feel like, is an organ we all kind of forget that we have sometimes. It's around the center of the torso. And I don't know its main function, to be honest with you. I just know that when it gets inflamed due to, I don't know, some people have acute pancreatitis, which is what I get. And then it sometimes becomes chronic pancreatitis. Chronic pancreatitis is pretty much like it's a condition you have to live with the rest of your life. You have to watch what you eat and drink forever. Because once it gets inflamed, it's horrible, horrible, horrible pain. You know? That's how I knew it too. Like I was drinking and drinking and drinking. I was drinking a seltzer, and the next morning I had this burning sensation in the middle of my stomach, and it felt like, it just felt like something, or like a knife was trying to come out of my stomach, and it shut everything else down. Your heart starts to like pump slowly. You get really, really dizzy. And you want to throw up, but if you try to throw up, it hurts even more. And I was just like, whatever. So I go to the hospital on August 14th because they told me, on the 15th. Yeah, that's when I was diagnosed. And they told me, you have that, but it's because of your drinking. And I was like, okay, whatever. They're like, by the way, you have cirrhosis. Sorry. And I was like, what? They're like, we have a little bit of cirrhosis. I was like, what does that even mean, I was like, okay. And then they were like, yeah, if you just keep drinking, it's going to get worse and stuff like that. But you can reverse it. It's still reversible. You can still manage it. You're still young. And then I got different answers from every single doctor or nurse or things like that. So I'm like, okay. And then even one doctor said I had fatty liver, not cirrhosis. So I was just all over the place with it. I was like, screw it. I don't care. Whatever. I'm going to keep drinking. It just got progressively worse. And at first I was like trying to tell myself it was all the spicy food I eat. Because Latinos, right? We all eat spicy food. And then I was like, no, I was just lying to myself. It was definitely, I quit drinking liquor completely and anything sugary. So I was just drinking just like Trulies and stuff. Still kind of sugary, but whatever. And wine. And the flare-ups were a lot less frequent, but they still happened. And then I was like, okay, cool, it can't be that bad. If they're happening every couple of weeks versus like every couple of days. No, and then one time it was so bad. I went to Vegas and I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna drink some liquor. I drank a lot of liquor, and then I kept drinking seltzers and eating trash. And when I got back, that's when I was like, I knew something was wrong. According to my wife, I passed out on the couch. I just remember I couldn't breathe. I couldn't fit. My body just shut down completely, and that's when they took me to the hospital. And they're like, "Hey, your cirrhosis is getting worse." And I was like, "I know." So I was like, "Okay, maybe if I just, like, no, for real, like, stop playing with your life." And it's just horrible. Now I actually started to actually throw up, and every single time I did throw up, it hurt, man. It is just. It's like being punched in the stomach and a knife trying to like explode at the same time. It's just fucking terrible. Oh my god, I don't even want to think about it. I still get it sometimes if I eat too much spicy food, but since I don't drink or I don't smoke, it's not as bad as it was before. So that was, if you start to feel something like that, like a burning sensation in your stomach, and you're a frequent drinker, immediately go to the hospital, because that is definitely a sign. 100% a sign. Don't try to convince yourself or your loved ones that you're fine. No, if you're getting like a lot of like acid reflux, you know, like, or just a burning sensation in your stomach, seek medical attention. You know, better be safe than sorry, right? But anyways, transplant list. At first, that's all I wanted because I had all the symptoms: ascites, pancreatitis, gastritis, you know, everything. And then the only cure to cirrhosis, as we all know, is a new liver. So I was like, okay. It's like, I want this bad. They're like, how many days sober do you have? And it wasn't enough. They're like, you need to have at least 6 months sober. And I was like, okay, all right. Then I started to get better because I started to watch what I eat, drinking more water. You know, obviously I'm completely sober. Don't smoke, don't drink, nothing. You know, don't even drink a Red Bull. But and even then, my one of my doctors, my primary care doctor, he says it's like typically it's like based on a priority list. Once you get on the list, you know, you're not the only one in town who wants a new liver. It's a very valuable, you know, organ. You know, like everyone's suffering. I was like, doc, but I can't work. He's like, I know, it's just a waiting game now. I was like, a waiting game? You know what I mean? I want another life. It's like you kind of have to be really, really going through it for them to convince them that you need an emergency transplant, which is when you're like super jaundiced, you're just on your deathbed, you don't even recognize who you're talking to anymore. And it seemed kind of backwards to me at first, you know. I was like, I'm over here trying for a better life, and then there's people who drink themselves to, you know, pretty much the end, and they're priority number one. It makes sense, but it's also kind of hurtful because chances are those people are most likely, I mean, based on what I've seen, they go back to bad habits, and that's what they don't want. They don't want you to waste an organ that, you know, is pretty much a gift from somebody else. I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, doctor, well, I can't run for very long. I can't stand for very long. Can't lift like I used to. A lot of places, you know, aren't really hiring without a degree in anything. I don't have a degree. I've been a bartender by trade my whole life, which obviously I can't do anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. And then it's like, well, you can try getting on disability. I was like, okay. And then I was like, how can I speed this whole thing up? You know, like I was like, my hernia is getting worse. It hurts. You know, that's the one thing that's impairing my life the most, my hernia. They're like, well, we can't operate on you because cirrhotic people are prone to infection and things could go wrong. I was like, yeah, things are kind of already going wrong. They're like, no surgeon will touch you. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, they won't. It's too much of a risk. I was like, oh, so they don't want to be partially responsible for something goes wrong, is what I got from it. I was like, okay, so what am I supposed to do for money? They're like, just apply. I think I applied for disability like last year, and they just now got the paperwork to send it to someone who's going to investigate if I'm actually sick, to start the process of potentially getting a couple $100 a month. And I was like, what? And I know of people who get thousands of dollars just for being diagnosed depressed. I'm not hating on them. I'm not trying to put them down. You know, depression's it's horrible, but I'm cirrhotic. I have a very borderline fatal disease, and amongst other things as well. You know, I am also depressed. You know, bills don't stop just because you're cirrhotic. They don't. They do not stop, and it's hard to stay positive and be calm because you do need help, but you also don't want to come off as a burden to other people. You know, somebody commented like, hey, is there any way to donate? And I was like, that never even crossed my mind. You know, I started this YouTube channel to help people because I realized not a lot of people talk about cirrhosis. You know, they just play it off like it's a joke, like a rotten liver is a joke. It isn't a joke. It's not a joke at all. And yeah, that's just my personal experience. I talked to my hepatologist in September, so when that happens, I'll update you guys on how that goes. But my prayers and my heart goes out to anyone who themselves or their loved ones are in the situation. It's tough, not much we can do. It's just a waiting game, and also just keep going, like my eyelids say, just keep going. Okay, thank you guys for listening.